Hey,
Yeah.
Jerry,
Yeah.
are you Mariners guy? Are you
No, God,
watching?
no. I'm Bay Area. If I'm rooting against the
Oh,
Mariners, I root against all Seattle
What are
where
you,
are
teams.
you
Giants fan?
from?
Or what?
Yeah, I'm a sad Giants fan, 49ers, Golden State, but I understand, the bat is loaded. Kyle Raleigh's
Uh,
bat's loaded.
Yeah.
So,
What are you doing now with the Raiders gone, with Oakland A's gone? Like, isn't the Bay Area is like depleted with sports? It must be sad.
yeah, it's kind of, well, yeah, it is. But I don't get back there. I still have to live up here.
what?
I don't work remote.
Okay, everybody, step back and let Jerry Cornfield cook. It's time for Sound Politics.
Welcome to Sound Politics. I'm Scott Greenstone.
And I'm Libby Denkmann. And Scott, somehow once again I've been conned into believing in the Mariners for a playoff run. Jerry DiPoto, you crafty son of a gun. You got me back on the M's train. Choo choo.
It is kind of the here's how Bernie could still win of local sports, I feel like. Is that true? I have no idea. This just felt right
I
to
think
say.
it's like, oh, actually a third party is viable of local sports.
The Mariners, the third party that's never going to get off the ground.
And just as, I'm going to bring this around from
Okay.
sports talk, just as all of the attention of Mariners faithful is right now focused like a laser beam
Yes.
on the Houston Astros, the Trashtros. The journalism world is also watching Texas very closely because of the hardball
Oh,
of another
my
kind
God.
being played by Governor Greg Abbott and the Republican legislature there.
Yeah, really, really good transition. Yeah, okay, so we're doing this. We're talking 2026.
Yeah, because we're sickos and gluttons for punishment. And yes, exactly like Mariners
in other
fans.
words, Mariners fans.
Yes.
The midterms next year are definitely the thing that minds around the country are bent towards right now. And for good reason, right? Certainly for Trump, who he wants states like Texas to quickly redraw their congressional districts to squeeze out even more Democrats in a already pretty gerrymandered state. But also for Democrats, right? Some of whom are trying to stop that redistricting, or in other states, swearing they will reverse years of good faith bipartisan map drawing and draw Republicans out of the congressional map. And I am talking about
California.
my former home.
Yep, my old stomping ground. Governor Gavin Newsom, in all caps, often in his X feed, saying, you're going to gain seats in Texas by cheating, essentially. I'm going to cheat here in California. I'm going to throw out our bipartisan redistricting committee and get 5 Democratic seats here in the Golden State. By the way, if this keeps escalating, I mean, Democrats know they're going to lose. Like, they just don't have as many states, governorships, and the legislatures in control where they can wring out more seats compared to Republicans. Like, if they go Florida, Indiana, like, Republicans are ultimately going to come out ahead.
It's all just kind of, right, circling the drain. All of it, the Democrats, the Republicans, it feels like circling the drain of this.
I hate the both sidesism of that, though, because this was clearly instigated by Republicans. And
No.
Democrats are self-critical for having what they say disarmed their ability to redistrict in many places. Go ahead.
I think you're right. Yeah. But either way, the stakes are incredibly high, right? The possibility that Democrats can retake at least one chamber of Congress and blunt the impact of the second half of Trump's, 4-year term.
Yeah.
So these stakes are on display, too, in our state's most competitive congressional seat. We have talked about it, plenty of times. It's one of the country's last true purple districts, Washington's 3rd congressional district, Southwest Washington, along the banks of the Columbia River. I'm talking Vancouver, Kelso, and all the way up to Centralia. This district has voted for Trump 3 times, but is represented in the House by a Democrat, one who is in the news a lot, at least for a
especially
House member.
a member of Congress.
Congresswoman-elect Marie Gluesenkamp Perez.
Marie Gluesenkamp Perez from Washington's 3rd District.
Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, she beat the former President Trump-endorsed candidate.
Congresswoman
Republican
Marie
Joe
Gluesenkamp
Kent.
Perez, thank you for the opportunity to interview you today.
Gluesenkamp Perez is facing potentially a very real challenge, and we're going to talk about that. But let's stay on her for a minute because she is one of the most unique Democrats in the country and, of course, in our state. She co-owns an auto shop in Portland with her husband. She lives in rural Skamania on the Washington side of the state. The auto shop's in Portland. In 2022, she ran for Congress. That's the same year that the Republican incumbent, Jamie Herrera Butler, was ousted in the primary by MAGA acolyte Joe Kent. And we know how that went.
Yeah. And Gluesenkamp Perez, who goes by MGP, who I'm going to refer to as MGP, she has somehow found a way to convince enough voters to split their ticket to keep her seat. Again, this district went for Trump. It also has gone for her twice.
Yeah, and her strategy seems to be avoid hyper-partisan stuff, focus on, I'd say, kitchen table politics.
God, please don't, but sure.
Well, okay,
maybe
auto shop politics.
Okay,
How about that? The right to repair, timber industry issues, stuff that directly impacts rural voters there in Southwest Washington. I mean, earlier this year, I spoke with her about an amendment she proposed to encourage the Secretary of Transportation to study car headlight brightness.
If you cannot make progress in the small things, you lose the muscle memory of doing these bigger projects. And it is vital that ordinary Americans view policy as relevant to their lived experience and useful, and not some navel gazing somewhere else in a swamp somewhere else, but like in the shared reality.
Do you think she's coming for us, Scott? Because we look at our own navels a lot, and we are swamp creatures.
Yes. Oh, MGP is coming for me in her incredibly fashionable flannels and chrome clogs.
Thrift store finds, yeah.
So she has also voted for, legislation from across the aisle, right? She voted for the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. That's legislation introduced by Republicans that hasn't made it out of the Senate so far. And it requires proof of citizenship when voting. She says that that's what her constituents want. But because of that vote, she was booed by her more liberal constituents at a town hall she held in April of this year.
Yeah, she also supported the Lake and Riley Act, which did pass required some undocumented immigrants who are arrested to be held without bail. She's really trying to stake out her own path to hold on to that seat. And the national media is super interested in her. She gets on national shows. She's on Jake Tapper's show, Ezra Klein's show. She gets these profiles in different magazines. There were a couple disparaging profiles I saw from lefty outlets like Slate that made fun of her and other blue dog Democrats for basically trying too hard to seem super normal, like regular folks in rural areas. But most of all, she's kind of a point of fascination for these national members of the press.
Yeah, totally. It's just funny. You talk to her and you would think her district is entirely sort of rural, logging, all those things, and not at all Vancouver, which is a large city. But I think she's a portal into this alternate reality where the Democratic Party is the party of, working class ruralites, not as much city people with college degrees like it is in our reality.
Yeah, kind of a throwback to 60, 70 years ago in national politics. I did ask her about her approach.
I don't think it's really effective for the DC scene to inflict itself and replace the priorities that I hear from my community locally in Southwest Washington.
But here's the thing. We don't totally have an answer to whether voters in Southwest Washington like MGP's style of politics, or they just don't like the other guy that has run against her both of the last two elections and lost both times. I'm talking about Joe Kent.
Joe Kent. He is a former Green Beret. He was just confirmed as the director of National Counterterrorism Center. He was working for Tulsi Gabbard there, the director of national intelligence for a while when Trump first took office. He wholeheartedly supports MAGA, the President's America First stuff. He has said that January 6th reeks of an intelligence operation, suggested that the FBI was fomenting things there. He was a Stop the Steal guy back in the day. I spoke with him shortly after the attempted assassination of President Trump in Pennsylvania, and Joe Kent at the time suggested that the Secret Service could be behind that attempt. That's the style of conspiracy theory stuff he flirts with.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so MGP, I think, won over him both times by finding that slice of Republicans who maybe voted for Trump but didn't want to go as far as Joe Kent and getting them on her side. Both times, those voters and a majority of the voters said, sure, you before the other guy.
Yeah, it's kind of like a high school science class. If you step back and look at the way the last two elections have gone in this district,
Okay.
it's like a high school science class where you run this experiment, you change one variable, test a hypothesis, and District 3 didn't change its variable. Like twice it ran the same experiment. So, we're kind of looking at what's the next chapter here and what is going to reveal the true hearts of these voters.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. That experiment, if you will be complete next year, I guess, or at least we'll have more data in it because a new challenger approaches, and this one is less aligned with Trump and has a more expansive elected resume.
State Senator John Braun is the Republican minority leader in the state Senate. He's a Navy veteran and he owns a business manufacturing emergency vehicles. He announced this week that he's running for Gluesenkamp Perez's seat.
And we asked Senator Braun to join us this week. He did not get back to us, but we got someone who has covered him for years. When we come back, Sound Politics takes a trip to the Jerry Cornfield. It's Jerry Cornfield of the Washington State Standard after this break.
Welcome back to Sound Politics. We're here with the Washington State Standard's Jerry Cornfield, longtime watcher of all things politics here in Washington State. Hey, Jerry.
Hello.
So the last time I was in Senator Braun's really fancy Senate office, I remember there was a picture of Winston Churchill on the wall, and it was a poster. It said, "Deserve victory." And it stuck in my head because... one, I think Braun kind of looks like a less stern, with more hair, Winston Churchill.
Rude.
I'm not trying to be mean. I don't think Winston. I mean, he's no FDR, but
He is way less jowly than Churchill.
I agree. Okay. And more hair. Let's just be clear. But I want to bring that up because it seems like a very classic conservative piece of decor from a bygone Republican age. And Jerry, I want to know, like, is that the impression we should get of Braun? Give us the cliff notes on Senator John Braun.
Well, Senator John Braun, in my experience, he's kind of grown as a legislator and a state senator. He was a numbers guy, kind of wonky. When he started, he handled the budget, was ranking there, and then moved to the minority leadership role that he's held.
And that was when he started, right? He was running or helping to run the Senate, was controlled by Republicans, right?
Yeah, he was in that first wave when the majority coalition was able to pick up 3 Democrats and pulled them on over, and they controlled the Senate. And as they infamously did not get along very well with the former governor, and they had a budget shutdown and the government problem. And so he had power early on in terms of the legislating process, and now he's leading the caucus.
Braun has been mostly in the minority party since he joined the Senate. What kind of a legislative record can he point to, Jerry? What have been his priorities while he's been in office?
Well, I mean, he's a fiscal conservative, and as Scott said, he's moderate, and as he said, he's not charismatic. So he's not. We've had a few folks in the caucus. Dino Rossi most famously, and I've even looked back before that. Some of their budget folks, Joe Zarelli and others that have been there, they had kind of a louder personality or charisma within the legislative and the political worlds, and he's just a business guy. And I don't know how he moved to become the strategist. I sense it was because he was more moderate than the former minority leader and a little less bombastic. I mean, he can get fired up, but his personality is more tempered than some of his predecessors. But mostly he's tried, I think, to deliver until recently, a counterbalancing message for Republicans to what's coming out of Washington, D.C. I mean, clearly he's not a conspiracy theorist. He hasn't been a ticket-holding member of the Trump train, and the caucus has not moved in that direction. Washington Republicans, historically, he's closer to the sort of historic Republican that is just not as conservative as those in Congress and the president. So, but that isn't, it hasn't fared very well in parts of Southwest Washington, for example, where last year they they were supporting candidates who were not supported by some of the stronger conservatives and put them at odds with other Republicans.
So as you just mentioned, Jerry, Braun is going to need to figure out where he stands in relation to the president, right? And the MAGA movement. And that has not, historically, he has stood a little bit closer to the center. He has supported some moderate Republicans who did not do, as you mentioned, very well in Southwest Washington. So Braun might not be very in line, or he might be a little misaligned with these Southwest Washington voters.
Not a little. I mean, the county Republican parties, I suspect that the next few months he's going to be spending time trying to make inroads and see if he can win endorsements from county Republican parties. Like the Clark County Republican Party, it's pretty conservative, and they were all on board with Joe Kent. They couldn't get him elected.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is the stress. Now, this is a stress test for the local/state versus the federal influences. I think we're going to make too much of it. I'm going to focus on it, as many are, how he hasn't been a strong Trump kind of voice. Talking about Senator Braun. In fact, state politics, they may have gone out of their way in both the House and Senate caucus leaders to not tie themselves to what goes on in the federal government. It's like, we don't care what goes on the other Washington. We're focused on this Washington. And he's got to reach out.
Yeah, talk about reaching out to like the conservatives, right? The real MAGA
I don't know if he will
conservatives.
right away.
Well, he was on the conservative talk radio circuit this week. He spoke with Jason Rantz on KTTH, Ari Hoffman on KVI about his run, and he told both of those hosts that his top priority is cutting federal spending. What other issues do you expect to be central to this race?
If you're in the door-to-door campaign, I would expect that his people and his team is going to try to deliver a message that I'm good with the president. I'm not Joe Kent. I mean, that's his biggest plus. To win, he has to show folks that he's not Joe Kent, but the problem is Joe Kent still has power in terms of personality and people support him, so he's got to walk that line. Donald Trump won this district in 2024. He won it in 2020. He won it in 2016. Tiffany Smiley beat, Patty Murray by almost 10%.
That was the 2022 Senate race.
Yeah, so we're talking, this is a Republican-leaning district, and the reason they lost is because Joe Kent was too far and wide out there for moderate Republicans and Democrats. There are independents in this district, too, that will vote Republican if they think the person isn't going to continue to deny who won the election in 2020. And John Braun is not going to bring that issue up. So I think that's a strategy. And he does have to reach out. He has to make sure that they don't work against him. They don't put up a candidate. And I think enough signals, we'll be watching for those kind of signals from the Washington, D.C. What kind of materials will come out on his, will the president come visit in early 2026? Will top members of the administration make visits through the area? What kinds of things will we see signaling that, hey, everybody, we're on board? It's a lot of signal that'll be going on from them.
Yeah. Will the president be tweeting and, lavishing praise on John Braun the way that he did with Joe Kent? And, if he does, is that a plus in the district? I mean, you mentioned that it's a plus Trump district. At the same time, there's clearly an appetite for sending somebody to Congress that's a kind of check on the Trump administration. There's enough voters there who kind of see that as, an avenue for something that'll get their vote. One question I have is, do you see John Braun, especially in the primary, in order to kind of head off the chance of a more MAGA candidate getting in? Do you see him tacking further to the right? Or do you think the local Republican establishment will get behind him as this like moderate counterpoint that might have a better chance in the general election against MGP?
That's a good question, because the state party at their last convention tried something to try to prevent, those intra-party destructive primaries, the kind that took former Congresswoman Jamie Butler out, the ones that threatened some of the races last year. It kind of hurt them at the governor's level when Dave Reicher didn't get the state party endorsement. And so it was like, if you don't get the endorsement, you're going to step out. This is going to be a test for Jim Walsh, the state party chair and state lawmaker. He's going to have to talk to folks. He's going to have to help. He said he was interested in this race. He doesn't actually physically live in the district right now.
Yeah, that's an Aberdeen state representative. He also runs the state party, Jim Walsh.
He has the closer connection to these folks. I think it'll be up to him to kind of work through these county parties and send a message that we want to win the seat.
I have a question about him because one of his
Just
first...
one?
Just
one question.
Just one question.
You
about
couldn't
him.
get more
It's not even really-
diametrically. I have to say, just watching videos of John Braun, I haven't covered the legislature, not like the legendary cornfield, of course, but just watching videos, you couldn't get more diametrically opposite personalities than Jim Walsh and what I've seen from John Braun. Like, these are very different characters.
Well, and the reason this question isn't really about Jim Walsh, but I did notice that the state party released some polling yesterday from a conservative consulting firm saying that Walsh, Braun, or even another Republican challenger from 2022 could beat MGP head to head, any of them. Although who even knows? This is polling from the state party that happens to show that the state party chairman does the best out of all three. That's Jim Walsh against MGP. But I think that it's interesting, those names that they polled. Do you think any other Republicans will go for this seat? Do you think Jim Walsh will go for this seat?
No, I don't see Mr. Walsh running. I don't see anybody with a big name challenging John Braun, but I won't be surprised if there are folks in the legislature or in the Republican circles who start at some point. I would think they would wait till early next year, maybe when he's in the legislature, when he can't really do much campaigning, start making statements, start making rumblings of an interest so they can get their name and their issue out there to help force Braun to the right. Issues that we don't really see up in the Olympia area, but tolling over the I-5 bridge is going to be an issue that's going to maybe sway people's minds. Light rail is still not done. We don't have the money from the Trump administration to build light rail over the new I-5 bridge over the Columbia River. That could be, one of those touchstone issues that starts to kind of pop up and force the senator to take a very vocal position on it. I might see that. I don't know if I don't expect any big name candidates though.
Yeah, he gets in early. It kind of maybe scares away the other Republicans who are thinking about it.
He's gonna raise a chunk of money in this quarter, right? So I anticipate that will scare folks off.
Yeah, you think there's going to be some money in this race, Jerry? Is that your prediction?
Well, I think he'll get some early just to prove it. But yeah,
this has been a very.
I wrote
expensive.
a number last time. I want to say it was like close to 20 million between the outside groups and the candidates.
Crazy. One final question for you. I thought it was interesting, and this is about MGP, not Braun or Kent or Walsh or anything. I thought it was interesting, though, that the first attack email from the Democrats on Braun called him a swamp creature. It was from the Central Coordinating Committee, which, has adopted this strategy here of kind of taking Trumpian language. MGP said the D.C. swamp has recruited him to run for Congress, talking about Braun. I want to quickly ask you both about the incumbent, like both of you, Libby, if you have thoughts on this too. So Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, I mentioned that Marie got booed for voting with Republicans at a local town hall. She has never been a darling of liberals. And obviously that's helped her in the past. That's kind of the point, right? But now with Trump and Republicans running Congress and a lot of Democrats feeling like they're like the Republicans are leading the country down the authoritarian corridor, could Marie lose Democrat votes? Jerry?
Depends on how and where the Democrats live. I mean, she isn't winning. She doesn't win any of the counties except Clark County, which has the highest concentration of Democrats and Republicans. So
that's where Vancouver sits.
Yeah. And so she could lose some of the moderate Democrats, again, on those very highly local issues that are going to have a potential impact at the federal level. A bridge related, that could be one, her votes, but for the most part, they might just leave it blank. And I guess that's like losing a Democrat vote as opposed to having them vote for John Braun. They may just not find her to be progressive enough and Democrat enough. What I noticed last year is that folks did come in to help her campaign from a little higher up in the Democrat ranks, but they didn't tell us. They weren't really interested in having folks, having much coverage from the local press of some of the higher ups. And she didn't go to like the state Democratic Party convention, right? She didn't, those aren't her people,
Yeah.
she will tell folks. So,
Didn't go to the DNC either.
I find it hard to believe that a lot of progressive voters who are looking at 2026 as the moment where they could strike a blow against the Trump administration, that she would lose them to either a blank or sitting at home. I think that, she's going to have a challenger in the primary. There's already a Vancouver-based Democrat who kind of flirted with a run already, who is a more progressive guy, Brent Henrik, who's declared. But, ultimately, this is going to come down between Gluesenkamp Perez and a Republican challenger in the general election. And progressives may have their differences with her, but they can count, I would assume. And that would be a big move to stay at home or not vote for her.
but that also presumes there's a lot of progressives in the district, right? And I don't know, but this isn't Seattle down there. Vancouver has blocks, but there's I don't think we're talking, the Democrats down there, the State Senator Cortez, who just barely won by beating Brad Benton. That shows you how close it is. Paul Harris is a
Cortez is a Democrat
in that area, and he's not a hard right Republican. So they play to the middle on many of their votes.
Yeah, ultimately, this will get decided by those swing voters who voted for Trump and Gluesenkamp Perez last time. It's not going to get decided, as you say, by a collection of disaffected Vancouver progressives. That's what you're saying, Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, I think that those exact voters who voted for the president but wouldn't vote for Joe Kent. So it's like we're on board with some of these themes. Now, they may be disenchanted, but the other issue that I think folks tend to get, I think a lot of us tend to get lost in the fact that it's August of 2025. Most of the major changes in the bill that everyone is raising alarm about still won't have taken effect. The state governments will have time to either respond or they'll have their own issues to deal with next year. There'll be elections and local elections, and there's a lot of time before we know if and there's a lot of days for the president to do a lot of things between now and then to either enrage or engage.
Yeah, the bill you're talking about there, One Big Beautiful Bill, which Marie Gluesenkamp Perez has tried to make an issue in the 3rd District, saying that the cuts to Medicaid are going to close some rural hospitals there. Jerry Kornfield, such a pleasure to have you on the show. I always appreciate your perspective. Legend in the Olympia Press Corps and Washington State political reporting. Jerry Kornfield of the Washington State Standard. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And Scott, before we go, I think that we should say we were remiss to not talk to Jerry about the number one issue I think is going to be present in the 3rd District race, which is there's an In-N-Out opening soon in Ridgefield, Washington.
Oh, yes, of course.
If John Braun wants to win in that district, he better deal with those drive-through lines, because that's going to be huge. The traffic on on that Ridgefield In-N-Out drive-through is going to be off the chain, and this is a huge governing challenge.
I've crossed state lines, driven for hours to get In-N-Out before. I guess I would say I'm an In-N-Out voter. And that's it for Sound Politics today. Our show is produced by Hans Anderson. Our editor is Catharine Smith. I'm KUOW politics reporter Scott Greenstone.
And I'm Libby Denkmann. The show is only possible, everybody, because of you, your support. Please consider a donation to keep us going at kuow.org/politics. Our show is getting a really nice, steady stream of people deciding that they care about the show and that they want to keep us going. It's getting noticed, so if that is you, if you believe in the show and you want to keep hearing local political coverage, kuow.org/politics. That's the way to do it. Send that message, and thank you.
See you next week.